When did a gut feeling save your life? Serious replies only. Was heading to my car in my building's parking garage. On my way to work. A van was parked next to my car and I could see a man inside. He motioned for me to come around to his door, pointing to something in his car, to try to get me to come look. I had a bad feeling, so I just shook my head and got in my car. I look over, and he's getting out of the van. I quickly start driving off, and notice there's a second man crouched behind a dumpster that was near the van. Not sure what I avoided, but sure as hell glad I did. I was in the woods looking for critters, and I found this big piece of plywood that would been perfect for reptiles and amphibians to hide under. So I go to lift it up, but I have this moment of what if there's something right where I'm gonna put my hands. So I grabbed a stick to lift it up and underneath was a copperhead. It wasn't right where I was gonna grab, so not sure if it would been able to bite me, but definitely a good cautionary tale. As a teenager in Ireland, one day I got this overwhelming feeling to stay at home from school. Good thing I did, cause my friends called me later that night to say a girl who was bullying me brought her junkie friend onto the school campus. Hid in the toilets for most of the day, waiting to beat the shit out of me. My friends weirdly overheard the plan while they were using the toilets at morning break. This was the time before mobile phones were used, so they each called me later that night. My gut felt weird, so I went to my doctor and ended up getting an ultrasound to check for possible gallstones. They found unrelated cancer instead. Gut feeling is probably why I'm alive right now. I don't remember this, but is a story my father told me. I was an extremely social kid up until age 5 or 6. Never met a stranger and loved people. My favorite thing to do was go to the mall to say hi to literally everyone. When I was around 4 years old, we lived next to a retired couple. Their 30-something-year-old son came to live them, and they wanted to introduce him to us. I was in the driveway with my parents when they took the opportunity to come do the introduction. According to my dad, I yelped at the sight of their son and hid behind my dad. Since this was so unusual, he let me hide and just said I was shy with strangers. They didn't come back over, and my parents stopped talking to them. A few months later, the neighbor's son was arrested with terabytes of child porn. He had just gotten out of jail after being convicted of child molestation. No telling what could have happened had my parents continued their friendship with our neighbors. My buddy's sister moved away from home, and within the first week of her living in her own home, a man comes up to her door and asks her if he can use her phone in her house because he is lost. She didn't buy it, felt uncomfortable and said no. Few hours pass. She walks outside to multiple police cars, ambulances, and fire trucks. Turns out the guy went next door and murdered her 2 neighbors who let him in. Lived in Orlando for a few years. Christina Grimmie had just been shot the night before, and my girlfriend wanted to go see a show downtown. We went to the show, but I had a horrible feeling afterwards. She wanted to go to Pulse after, because it was on the way home, but her car was broken down that day, and I had my father take us directly home, because I didn't feel comfortable staying out that night. The next morning we got texts asking if we were at Pulse, because the club had been shot up. We were there the week before the massacre, and had missed it by mere hours on our way home that night. Not driving off immediately as the light turned green. Sure enough, a second later 2 cars smashed into each other, probably right where I would have been had I taken off when the light turned green. Scary seeing a head-on collision happen literally less than 10 feet in front of you. I was working and had a terrible urge to go home. I'm not one to ever call off or leave in the middle of a shift. I ended up saying I had a headache and my manager let me leave early. Just a few short hours later, I found out my manager's ex-husband came into the store and shot her dead. When I was in college, my boyfriend and I lived in an apartment. One day, when I was home alone, 2 guys knock on my door. I open up, and they give me some story about donating to a charity. I was dumb and said okay sure, let me get my purse. When I turn around, they are inside the foyer blocking the front door. I instantly get nervous and start fumbling with my checks, to which they say they don't take checks, just cash. Then, they ask if anyone else is there, and I say yes, my boyfriend is sleeping. I like to think I said that convincingly enough, and I said, let me go see if he has cash. I went into my bedroom to see if I had a weapon, but I heard the door close and they were gone. Not sure if it saved my life, but I was driving once and had a gut feeling this guy pulling out of his driveway up ahead was just gonna go right ahead without looking to see if anyone was coming. I put my foot over my brake pedal and my hand on my handbrake just in case. Glad I did. I was in a compact too. Guy was in a truck. I would have been completely wrecked. Don't know if this is a gut feeling or I just got plain lucky. Used to live in a really sketchy part of town. I decided not to go to the gym this one evening because I was super tired that day. That same evening, around the same time that I would normally walk to the gym, there was a shooting in an intersection that was part of my usual route. 2 people died. I think to myself, had I decided to go to the gym that day, 3 people may have died. So I got really lucky ironically by skipping gym. This is exactly why I don't ever go to the gym. Went to pick up my younger sister after school and felt something strange behind my back. As if there's something that told me to turn around, and so I did and found a guy that was carrying a thick wood and was already swinging the wood towards me and my sister. I grabbed her by the hand and carried her away from that guy that was following us while laughing like crazy. We were running around the place and while running, I decided to guide him to the police and they arrested him. Turns out he's a homeless guy who went crazy after he lost his sister before. He went crazy and would roam around town sometimes naked and scaring kids. It also turns out it wasn't his first time doing this. He actually did this to someone else too and somehow got away with it. I was digging for crystals on a mountain in Idaho. The dig site looked like a war zone and was very far up a windy old logging road. Holes had been dug everywhere and fallen and chopped pine trees scattered all over the hillside. I was just getting into rock hounding and had no experience or knowledge. Long story short, I end up digging a large hole under a huge pine tree and got underneath its roots in a huge hole. There were lots of amazing big crystals I was finding in this huge hole/cave. Dirt started falling a little from ceiling. I didn't know what that meant. I decide in that exact moment I should look at this hole I'm in under this tree because I didn't feel good about it. I walk 4 feet away from the hole and instantly the 70-foot pine tree collapses into the 6-foot hole I was just in and comes crashing down to the mountainside floor. All my tools were buried under the root mass and were recovered years later. I'm just really glad I'm not a pancake. I was driving home from work and it was pouring rain so bad and so heavy that I could barely see the back of the car in front of me, but people were still zipping through like it was nothing. All of a sudden I felt a really strong urge to take the next exit, even though in my mind I was like home isn't that far, just keep going. But it was kind of like keeping straight became out of bounds and my car just took the exit. Drove until I found a familiar parking lot and waited out the rain for a bit until I gathered the courage to keep going. I backtracked a little bit and got on the freeway a couple of exits before the one I had previously gotten off on. When I passed that area, a short ways down they were still cleaning up an accident that I probably would have been involved in if I decided to keep going. Definitely had a guardian angel with me that day. Drunk. Years ago. A Friday night. Wandering the halls of an Arctic research station. I heard a sound behind a door leading to a food storage room on the exterior of the building. Figuring that it was the cook taking a smoke break, I thought that this would be a good chance to bum a smoke from him. I reached down to turn the doorknob and was filled with such a sense of utter dread that I had to jerk my hand back, almost as if I had been electrocuted. Confused and badly wanting a smoke, I tried to open the door a second time, but had the same result. Brain to me, if you open that door, something terrible will happen. As I stood there, mystified and looking at my hand, a station staff member passed by and asked me if I was okay. There's something wrong in the storage room. You're just drunk. Go to bed. Half an hour later I was awakened by a commotion of profanity and yelling. A polar bear had broken into the storage room and, with the exception of a box of tofu, had eaten the contents of one of the fridges. I was a teen, maybe around 15ish. My mom was a single mom and would go on dates often. However, she would never bring her dates around unless she was serious and had been dating for a while. I'm the oldest girl and have 3 younger sibs that I was stuck babysitting. She was dating this guy who was perfect on paper and loved children. We live in TX in a border city with Mexico. He was a professional Mexican wrestler, lucha libre wrestler. When we met him for the first time, mom brought him to our house and introduced us to him. I immediately disliked him. I remember having this overwhelming urge to grab my siblings and run away from him. My mom wasn't a good mom to me. She bluntly told me when I was little that she never wanted me, and when she tried getting rid of me, I somehow still clung to her, and she had no choice to have me. But she was a better mom to my sibs, and she thought I was just jealous cause this man really liked my sibs. Especially my baby bro and C's. Bro is 10 years younger and C's is 7 years younger. I clinged to my gut and made it impossible for this man to bond with them. It was a hill I had chosen to die on. I was relentless when it came to him being alone with them. I didn't care if I got beat. I made sure to make it as miserable as I could. He left mom a few months after. She hated me for it. Then like 6 months after that we see his mugshot in the news. Like the special reports section. He was arrested for child porn, abuse, and trafficking. I remember mom taking credit for it, saying she didn't stay with him cause some gut feeling. That was after she blamed me for months for ruining her relationship with him. What did your gut feeling save you from? Remember to subscribe and leave a comment below. Toodles.